Our southern weather is unpredictable.
We know you've seen a thing or two.
Like heavy rainstorms,
extreme heat, and flying debris.
Your New South windows are custom built for your home and designed for extreme conditions.
That's why you need New South by your side.
enjoy comfort,
Safety and security.
We install peace of mind with our lifetime guarantee. Superior windows, factory direct.
New South proud.
Buy more, save more. Volume discounts on 4 or more windows.
Time, weather, and always.
How you doing, everybody? I'm Chief Meteorologist Denis Phillips. Heat's still the hot topic of weather conversation, right? Just smashed the previous record for rainfall in Tampa. Still a very nice day. We've got some clouds out there, even a couple of sprinkles as another front rolls through the area. Most of us wake up to sunshine and then very warm temperatures in the afternoon. For temperatures, they're going up and they're staying up. Really nice forecast, especially if you're planning on going to the beach or the pool. Rain chances very slim. It's another beautiful day in store. It's going to bring us a very high chance of storms. Isolated showers across the area. Mother Nature likes to remind us that it isn't set by a calendar. We're always on it for you, just in case things begin to pop.
Streaming from the ABC Action Weather Center in Studio A, this is Denis Phillips Live.
Sponsored by New South Window Solutions. Made in Florida for Florida homes by Florida workers.
How you doing, everybody? It is a Tuesday night edition of Denis Phillips Live. We were here last night. We'll be here most of this week. Obviously, as the tropics heat up, as the long-range forecast gets a little more active, we're going to talk a lot about the tropics on a daily basis. We'll do some hellos. Again, we are now streaming on YouTube. I'm streaming YouTube Live right now on my YouTube page. So if you're watching on our streaming app or Facebook, please go over to my YouTube page and subscribe. That is always a good thing. It's Denis Phillips Weather, just like it is on TikTok. Denis Phillips Weather. So you go over, you hit subscribe, and you'll get notifications anytime we decide to do a live shot. Now, with DPL, those will automatically notify you on YouTube, but it also will notify you if I do special updates with severe weather not on my platform here. If I'm at home, if I'm outside, if I'm doing whatever, and I do some YouTube Live, that will notify you as well. So again, go to YouTube, look for Denis Phillips Weather, one N in Denis, subscribe, and you'll have all the weather information you could possibly want. We've got a lot to talk about. You may have noticed earlier, and you know me, I'm never shy about stirring the pot. But yeah, last night we were talking a little bit about the fact that Publix has decided not to make hurricane cakes, and they've been getting a little bit of heat on social media because of it from some folks. Other folks, agreed with their decision. I didn't say one way or the other. I mean, I like the cakes. I think levity is a good thing when a storm is coming. I think people have a tendency to freak out if you get a big storm. So to me, my take kind of is, you know what, maybe there's a big storm, but at least there's things that'll do to ease your stress level just a bit. And I think one of that is laughing. I mean, I think that's just kind of sometimes human nature. You need a little bit of a way to lighten the load, if you will. So there was, a lot of news stories, and our station had talked to Publix corporate, and they had verified, that they had sent out memos to their bakeries. And I had actually talked to a couple of the managers in the bakeries themselves that said, we had gotten notifications that we weren't going to do this anymore. So, that in itself is, the decision for Publix. But for Facebook, I posted it, and this morning I woke up with a big fact check. Independent fact checkers say that this is false, and they deleted it. And I'm like, what do you mean it's false? It's not false. We've done the story. We ran the story, and we have interviews from corporate. So I don't know where the fact checkers came up with their stuff, but I shared the station's story and on our website the story that is indeed a thing. And there was a lot of talk about it. But so if you were wondering where that came from, I have literally the big old blurred out thing that says fact check. Yeah, this was wrong and whatever. So I thought that was actually kind of entertaining. Yes, fake news. Exactly right, Jackie. So, by the way, I do want to do some hellos. We got a lot of folks here. And I do want to mention, too, before we get into it, we are getting into the heart of the hurricane season. And I want to mention this because we have put a ton of work into this. So on our Etsy page, where the proceeds benefit the Children's Miracle Network, we have started adding stuff unlike we've ever had before. Tons and tons of new stuff is on our Etsy page. New bottles, new mugs, new cups, science-y. There's a lot of tennis stuff. My wife loves tennis. My son loves pickleball. So we've started doing a lot of that stuff, and we are just constantly adding new stuff where the proceeds go to Children's Miracle Network. So if you go on Etsy.com, and as my daughter says, search up Rule 7 Shop, you will see all this stuff. And I will tell you, some of the stuff that we've been getting printed elsewhere comes out in 5 days. When we make it ourselves, it's 4 to 6 weeks because we're literally doing it in our living room and our dining room and our kitchen and all the stuff ourselves, packing it ourselves. We're actually sending some of it out to a third party. Makes a little bit less for Children's Miracle Network, but it means I'm not up till 4 o'clock in the morning every day stuffing boxes. So check it out. Claudia, that is not how you're going to get things on this show. This is DPL. We're going to talk about things as we get to it. And you're just going to have to be patient. It's just the way it is, all right? So, and we also go in many different directions, as I've been known to be the squirrel dog in the movie Up. You know, I go in this direction, I go in this direction. But we will be talking a lot about, obviously, the tropics each and every day as we do. Beth, how you doing? Laszlo, my buddy, how you doing? Laszlo is a member of our chat group for a long, long time. If you've ever seen the movie Real Genius, where Laszlo lived under the stairs. Remember that? Great movie, Val Kilmer. Really funny movie, actually. Laszlo is the guy under the stairs. So when we often say, hey, Laszlo, how goes it? Laszlo answers with, I'm under the stairs. So happy almost Wednesday to you, Melissa. Again, we got lots and lots of folks here talking. So let's go ahead and jump into things, shall we? All right, so if you're watching on our streaming app, we're here till 8 o'clock. I'm actually only going to continue until 8 because my birthday's this week, and my son, who goes back to FSU, is taking me out to dinner. And we're going to go get burgers or something. So he's driving over. We're going to meet me for dinner, and I never, ever get to see my kids for dinner, so it's an awesome thing. So that's going to be right at 8 o'clock. So 20 minutes, trust me, is plenty of time. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. And the Rays, Nancy, thank you for the update. So, yeah, I mean, we definitely, we definitely have stuff going on, but at this point, none of which is really a threat to the U.S. whatsoever, all right? So we're going to go ahead and jump in and just start with what's happening out there right now. You've got the remnants of Emily in the North Atlantic, probably not going to redevelop. You've got another tropical wave off to the east that now is no longer a high potential develop, but more of a moderate potential. But either way, not going to pose a threat because it's going to curve. Now, we're going to talk a lot about Franklin and now Harold, which Greg D., our meteorologist in the morning, kept spelling it Herald, H-E-R-A-L-D, all morning long. I don't know if it was autocorrect or he was just tired. But no, I have not started getting Diet Dr. Pepper yet, Dawn, because we have not started doing our extended coverage. But once extended coverage goes, then we absolutely do, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening. There are the potentials for development. The new numbers come out actually in a couple of minutes. We'll see if that's changed by the NHC. Regardless, neither one pose a threat whatsoever. So let's start with Tropical Depression Harold. It was a tropical storm for a brief period of time, but we've been saying from the beginning this is nothing more than a rainmaker and a good thing, a very, very good thing for Texas. They're in as big of a drought, if not a bigger drought than we are. So at least the southern third of Texas is getting some decent rain out of Harold as it continues to move off to the northwest. So Joe, you know what? When we get an actual storm out here, those numbers are actually 100,000, 200,000. It's a true story. When there's actually real weather going on, and lots of it, we actually cracked 1 million views when Dorian was here a few years ago. So yeah, but again, you know, we pace ourselves, right? Because at this point, nothing really imminent for our area. The Caribbean is another story. And we're going to focus a lot on Franklin and the Caribbean, because that is by far our biggest concern right there now. So depression, tropical depression herald, pretty much done. Last advisory tonight will probably be 11 o'clock, and there you have it. All right, so here we go. We talked a lot about Franklin last night, and we're going to continue to talk about Franklin for the next 6 or 7 days. Right now, still a very ragged system. Wind is not the issue, will not be the issue. Adam, that's the big question. The Euro has been on that. We'll get into that after we talk about Franklin, because the Euro continues to, hey, Penn Stater, we are. The Euro continues to advertise some development pulled up from the Caribbean. But regardless, I want to talk about Franklin because this is a really serious situation. And if you look at where Franklin is going, winds of 40 miles an hour, again, this is not a wind situation at all for the islands. But what it is a significant flooding situation, a big-time flooding situation. 5 to 10 inches of rain anywhere from Hispaniola, the Dominican. Puerto Rico is on the fringe of the heaviest rain, so you're not going to get it nearly as bad in Puerto Rico as you are in the Dominican, Hispaniola, and it is going to be, as Crystal just mentioned, it's going to be a real significant issue for flood and mudslides. And Amanda, you're going to be in the Dominican next Wednesday. By then, it will be gone. But look at the track. This takes it through Friday, and then it really starts to pick up a little bit. Yesterday, we showed you some of the models, and I'll show you again that there are some models that are still hinting it could get closer to the U.S., but at this point, really not close enough to give any kind of a significant impact on the U.S., other than maybe a little bit of surf. You might be right. You might be right, Cindy. We might get those 11 billion. It is a possibility. But we're going to show you some model data in just a minute coming in with Franklin. I'm going to jump in on the NHC site, and we're going to do some pretty in-depth coverage of Franklin, because that's really right now the big concern for the folks in the Caribbean. So let's keep looking. Okay, well, this is a look at clearly we are now getting into prime time for development. From now through the middle of October, that's when things are going to get going. All right, so let's go back. And Bermuda, you know, it's a possibility, Teresa. Let's go ahead and touch on that in just a second. And Janet, you got your rule number 7. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Anna Maria Island. June, I appreciate it. I have never done that, Lori, but it sounds awfully good. So let's look at the rain, because honestly, the rain issues, you know, you look at the wind speed probability for Franklin, and it's a high probability of minimal tropical storm force winds. But if you look at 50-knot winds, it's just not much of an issue. It's just not. So this is not going to be a wind event. This is a rain event. And that by far is the biggest concern. So when you look at the key messages, tropical storm conditions are expected at 40 miles an hour winds, but right here, heavy rainfall from Franklin is expected across portions of Hispaniola and Puerto Rico into Thursday. The heavy rainfall may produce areas of flash and urban flooding, excuse me, as well as river rises and mudslides. Across Hispaniola, significant and potentially life-threatening flash flooding is possible through today and into tomorrow. That, by far, is our biggest concern. So when we look at the model data, all right, we're going to look at the entire Atlantic here, and we're going to start with the Euro. All right, this takes us through 24 hours, and you can see Franklin right on top of Hispaniola. You see the other areas off to the east not really developing, and what Adam was talking about, look in Central America for the possibility of some moisture coming up. Now look at what Franklin does. We're going to focus on Franklin first. Goes up. It all depends on the positioning of several features. The low right there, the Bermuda high. All right? Watch what Franklin does. It's kind of slow moving without much steering currents at all for several days. This takes us into the weekend. And then finally it starts to pick up speed. Gets a little bit closer to the U.S., but still well to the east of the Bahamas, closing in potentially on Bermuda. The Euro brings it over Bermuda, or pretty close to it. And then look at what's going on in the Caribbean. See that little bit of moisture in South Florida? This is the Euro trying to develop something. This has been going on for 3 or 4 days now. Now, originally, the Euro was bringing it in the eastern Gulf and into Florida. Now it keeps it off to the east. And then it actually pulls like a little loop-to-loop. Watch this. That's what it does here. So it kind of takes it out, brings a little loop-to-loop, and then finally fizzles out. But we can actually go from here. So let's bring it back. So you've got Franklin curving off to the northeast toward Bermuda, while you have this building area of moisture in the Caribbean. The Euro has been showing this for days, and it keeps pushing it back day after day. That is a telltale sign, and most meteorologists will recognize this. If you have a model that keeps pushing stuff back instead of keeping the same timeline, it's because it's not seeing the atmosphere very clearly. So that's kind of what the Euro is doing with this. The GFS, hashtag cha-ching, here's the GFS, a very similar setup to what the Euro is. So let's compare the two. Here's the GFS at 126 hours, there's the Euro. Very close, very close. Now we go up to 172 hours. There's the GFS, there's the Euro. The Euro is a little faster, a little more progressive, and a little closer to the U.S., maybe more of a surf issue. But the GFS continues to keep it well offshore, and for that matter, east of Bermuda, probably. So if we show what the GFS shows, here's the important thing. Look at the motion with the GFS. Do you see anything like the Euro with development? You don't. So I will never completely write off the Euro because the Euro is still an exceptional model overall. But in my opinion, it's having a really tough time with this Pacific moisture pulling it up north across Central America and into the Gulf or somewhere near Florida. The Euro is the only model that continues to do that, and to its credit, it has not backed off. It has not backed off. GFS is the American model, Kate. It's a global forecast system, the GFS, and it is the American model. Raise your knob 3-2. Corey, thank you for the update. So again, looking at all of these things, what are some of the issues going on now? Well, here's one of them. Where is all this Saharan dust? Where is it? It's retreating north, as it often does in August. So August and September usually is prime time in hurricane season, and one of the main reasons is the African dust, the Saharan dust, pulls north. If you remember, the Hurricane Center, when they bumped up their predictions for an increase in the season, they were talking about more waves coming off of Africa than what we had before, right? Well, there's one of them right there. It doesn't let me draw on this. So if you have more waves coming off of Africa, there's more potential for development. If you have less Saharan dust, that's more potential for development. If you have very warm water temperatures, that's more potential for development. So what is the downside? Well, the downside is El Nino. And we've shown you this map before, but I'm going to show it to you again. El Nino is just not something that just pops up out of anywhere. It takes a long time to develop. Yes, we are doing fantasy football. Kyle actually wanted to be on DPL next week to talk about fantasy football, Jules. So if you look at this, El Nino is a large area of warm water off the coast of South America. It increases hurricane activity in the Pacific. It typically decreases hurricane activity in the Atlantic because increasing the hostile conditions in the upper levels. So Pacific, you get more activity. In the wintertime, however, El Nino typically brings the subtropical jet much closer to Florida, and that enhances the chances of severe weather in the wintertime. So typically we have wetter winters in the wintertime when there's an El Nino, and there will be an El Nino, by the way. There will absolutely be an El Nino. So what are we looking at in terms of this summer and the hurricane season? Well, when you have an El Nino, traditionally you have stronger upper level winds, fewer storms develop. We are Lisa from Central PA. How you doing? So when you look at development right here, all right, this is what the upper level winds typically look like in the summer in the Atlantic in an El Nino. And as I was showing a minute ago, oops, that's not the map I wanted to, that's the names. As I was showing you a second ago, you got that warm water off the coast of South America, which traditionally makes a much more active season in the wintertime because of the subtropical jet, right? Right there, the red arrow is the subtropical jet. Thank you for the birthday wishes, guys. Very kind. And there you see the upper level winds are much higher. Now, as the Hurricane Center was talking about earlier on, there can be breaks in that hostile conditions. There can easily be a 4, 5, 6, 7 day break where the winds aren't as unfavorable and you can get development. So that in a nutshell is what happens in the Eastern Atlantic in August into September. Warmer waters, El Nino is the downside, but it isn't such a downside that it can completely eliminate warmer waters, less Saharan dust, more waves coming off of Africa. So it's kind of a balancing act. There will be times where the negative stuff wins. There will be time that the positive stuff wins. And it happens through the middle of October. All right? So that is the key indicator of what we look for, right? When you look at potential tropical development in the month of August and into September, you open up 3 areas. The Gulf, the Caribbean gets shut down in an El Nino more often than not. It's the tropical Atlantic that gets most of the action. And the positioning of the Bermuda high is everything. If that high is closer this way, it will force storms into the southeastern part of the U.S. If the high retreats back, more often than not, you get a storm going around the perimeter and up the eastern seaboard, but just offshore. Or if it's somewhere in between, you can see landfall in the Carolinas, the Outer Banks, which is a real common place to get hit. So overall, the positioning of this high, or highs, plural, is really the key to what drives a tropical Atlantic hurricane into the U.S. or curving around it. And here's a perfect example. Look at where the high is. I'm going to stop it. The loop keeps moving. Look at where the high is, and look at where the direction of this motion is. Well offshore, because the high is offshore. It's real easy. The positioning of that Bermuda high is everything. So when we look at potential development, that's just one of the factors we look at. Now, here are the updated global tropics hazard outlook. For the week of August 30th to September 5th, look at the scale down here. So for next week, there is high probability of development right there, and potentially in the Gulf. Now that is from the Euro. This is their respect for the euro, saying we're not going to blow this off entirely, even though none of the models are showing it because the euro is so accurate many times. But the highest probability is right where you would expect it, right there, in the tropical Atlantic, where it's mostly active this time of the year. Now, the following week, September 6th to September 12th, you continue to see another area of potential development. So you will have to make the assumption, and I think it's a valid assumption, that pretty much from now through the end of September, we are going to have a lot of action in the Atlantic and in the Gulf, period. Not that I intended to bury the lead, but there it is. From now through the end of September, I think we will constantly have things on the map that the Hurricane Center puts out. This one. This one. This one. There it is. All right, so this map should be very active, as it usually is. But the fact that you have all the warm water, the decreasing dust, the increasing monsoonal flow means it will be even above average. The only drawback for development, of course, is El Nino. So, Melissa, here's something that I will say that is encouraging. Look at where all of the ones out in the Atlantic are forecast to go with the models and with the NHC. Well offshore of the U.S. Here is an important factor. In an El Nino year, traditionally the Caribbean is shut down. All right? Not always. There can always be exceptions. We all know this. But our worst case scenario is a storm coming in from the Caribbean and hooking to the right as a trough approaches. Very often, the Caribbean is shut down in September in an El Nino year because of those hostile wind conditions. And based on the positioning of the Bermuda highs, for the next 2 weeks, everything looks to stay offshore because that high is far enough offshore. Hey, Stephen, how's it going? So, all right, Terry, see? So even though the euro is trying to draw moisture from the Pacific, it keeps pushing it back. It's pulling a GFS because the GFS is notorious for not letting go of an idea. But let's say it predicts something in 7 days. And then the next day, 7 days. And the next day, 7 days, when it should be 5 days. And the next day, 7 days, which it should be 4 days. It keeps pushing it back. And that is a telltale sign that that particular model is not seeing the atmosphere very well. So even though we have to respect the euro, the fact that it keeps pushing back development is a good thing. The fact that the Bermuda high has not established itself this summer, and we all know that because we don't get an easterly wind very much this year. We've had a trough of low pressure on the East Coast. That gives us a west wind. That's why we have not been seeing our typical late-day storms, and we're dealing with drought conditions. But the overall pattern in an El Nino year typically shows recurvature of Atlantic systems. Not always. Say it again, there's always exceptions. But overall, in a wide-scale pattern, looking at a 6-week stretch, you're more inclined to see storms curving than not. But that's why we'll be here every day, looking at the changes every day, talking about the changes after 4 or 5 minutes of chit-chat or hellos or how stories or talking about our fundraisers. And for the folks who just want weather 24/7, this is not your show. I'm maybe 23.5/7. So we do try to keep it light and have some conversation amongst us because there's a lot of us here who have been in these chats for a long time, and we love the interaction. They're friends, they're family. I look at our chat group like that, and that's what DPL has truly become. So there you have it, folks. We'll be back again tomorrow night, as always. I'm going to go have dinner with my son. He's taking me out to Shake Shack to get some burgers, so I'm loving it. And He goes back to school tomorrow, so it's sad. I will miss him. But anyway, that's where we are. If you're watching in the Caribbean, we will be updating you constantly because of Franklin as mudslides continue. If you're watching on streaming, thanks for watching. Okay, so streamers are gone. I'll answer a couple of questions if you have any, but I think we pretty much covered it. Yes. But like I said, let me look and see if there's any questions that y'all have that I didn't get a chance to answer. I will give you a minute and then we will head on out. So again, do me a favor, go to YouTube, look for Denis Phillips Weather, one N in Denis, and subscribe to the page. Because the more subscriptions I get, the more opportunities I have to use some of the little features that they have for people who have more subscribers. And I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff that I will not forget Facebook. Facebook is my bread and butter. Don't ever think I'll leave Facebook. But we're doing some TikTok stuff. We're doing YouTube Live because we all know there's some people who just aren't fans of Facebook anymore. And then we all know there's people who only love Facebook. But the people who don't like Facebook, they're going to TikTok and they're going to X and they're going to YouTube. So my goal is when a storm is coming, I'm on every platform there is. So no matter what it is that you prefer yourself, you're going to get the weather information that you need. That ultimately is my goal. So what do the Bahamas look like? Elle in the Bahamas look fine. I think this stays, I think what the heck's its name? Franklin. Franklin stays well to the east of the Bahamas. But yeah, I suspect we will see a conga line at some point in the upcoming month of September. I really do. All right. So you guys, thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. We will be back tomorrow night with all the updates because whenever there's tropics stuff going on, you know I'm going to be here. I'm going to go have dinner with my son. Have a great night, and we'll see you in tomorrow's edition of Denis Phillips Live. Night, guys.
Our southern weather is unpredictable.
We know you've seen a thing or two.
Like heavy rainstorms.
Extreme heat and flying debris.
Your New South windows are custom built for your home and designed for extreme conditions.
That's why you need New South by your side.
Enjoy comfort,
Safety and security.
We install peace of mind with our lifetime guarantee. Superior Windows, factory direct.
New South proud.
Buy more, save more. Volume discounts on 4 or more windows.